Welcome to From Root to Crown with Rebe, the podcast where we explore the depths of self-understanding and the mysteries of the universe. I'm your guide on this transformative journey. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about my journey, my personal journey so far with womb healing, with the hopes of offering you insights and tools to help you lead a more aligned, energetic life. So this is going to be a little bit different than the normal podcast that I do, where I'm really trying to teach you something or give you guidance on how to do something simpler or in a different way. This is really about me and my journey, and really about exploring what has and hasn't worked for me so far, knowing that there is still more in this story. I'm not at the end of this journey yet, but I'm far enough down the path that I want to share with you, because I held off on exploring today's topic in my own life for a long time because I had the wrong idea about what womb healing really is or can be. So let me take you back to not quite a year ago when my cycles changed. I am in my mid-40s. So at first I blew it off as the beginnings of perimenopause. There was rage, there was emotions, there was sweating at night, all of the things that if you are in my demographic, you know what I'm talking about. And while my cycles changed and there are things that I'm sure are perimenopause, about 9 months ago, I started to experience a sharp pain in a very localized spot that came back month after month and got worse month after month, to the point where I've started checking my calendar and calculating out my cycle and not scheduling clients or other events on what I'm predicting to be the first couple days of my menstrual cycle. The pain has gotten to be, honestly, a 10 out of 10. It is the worst pain I have ever experienced in my life. And if it was around anything besides my cycle, I probably would have taken myself to the emergency room. But when you're a female, you can't go to the emergency room every month. Thankfully, my story is not like many other people's stories. When I called my gynecologist and said something's changed and it's wrong, she listened and sent me for some additional imaging. I went and had an ultrasound late last year, and they came back and said, there's maybe an ovarian cyst. Looks like you might have a small fibroid in the area where you are feeling so much pain. I had a very strong suspicion that the more that I pursued this, especially given my age, the fact that I've had my kids, the fact that I don't quote unquote need my uterus anymore, that a hysterectomy was going to be what the doctors were going to push me towards. And I was right. I saw a specialist with the hopes of getting some options to treat this fibroid and see where we could go. Of course, when you meet with a surgeon, they're going to be cavalier about the idea of doing surgery. And he was very nice. I have nothing against this man, but his response was, well, kiddo, we take it out. No big deal. Like, you'll be so glad that you did. And I just have to reject that. Now, I understand where he's coming from. Most of the time, when women get to him, they are at their wits' end and have been dealing with the level of pain that I have been dealing with for years. For years. And I am positive that a hysterectomy is the right choice for many of the people who choose it. In my particular instance, what I have, I'm going to butcher this, I think it's called adenomyosis. I think that's how you say it. So it's like endometriosis, but whereas endometriosis is inside your abdominal cavity outside of your uterus. What I have is endometrial tissue that has gotten absorbed and stuck inside the muscle of my uterus. So it's inside my uterus. And of course, he said the only solution for this is a hysterectomy. However, what I have isn't going to kill me. It's not fatal. It's simply how much pain can you tolerate? So I did not schedule a hysterectomy and instead turned to my Reiki master, my healer, who had recently completed some somatic training and got her certification in somatic work. Because my knowing was that removing an entire organ was going to upset my system more than what I was dealing with, and that there were other unexplored solutions to my particular issue. On a parallel track to all of this physical stuff, I guess let me back up a little bit in the timeline to hearing about womb healing. If you are in the divine feminine, mystical goddess spaces like I am across the internet, I am fairly confident that you have come across the term of womb healing. And it's kind of like breath work. It's kind of like meditation. It's a generic term for a lot of different healing modalities. I have friends who have experienced womb massages. I have friends who have done sexual healing. I have friends who have done yoni steaming, all of these terms. And these were the things that I was familiar with before feeling like I needed it in my space. And one of my dear friends facilitates some work like this for people. And I was asking her about womb healing a year ago as, again, things were starting to change for me before I hit the crescendo. And she said, well, it can be really helpful to work through trauma, sexual trauma or, trauma in your uterus space. And I was like, I don't have any trauma. I don't have any trauma. And this friend lovingly pushed back on me and said, it's not just what you're thinking of as far as traditional trauma. And the more that I got to thinking about it, the more that I realized there were some layers in this part of my system that had experienced things and that I had beliefs that needed shifting. So I had started doing some of this work on my own around my own internalized beliefs about my sexuality, my sensuality, what it meant to be a quote, good girl, and the purity culture that I was brought up in, and beliefs about that part of our bodies being fundamentally dirty or wrong or shameful or something that needed to be hidden. Again, this work was happening in tandem with me going and seeing the doctors and the specialists and all of those types of things. So when I came to the point where it was hysterectomy or deal with 10 out of 10 pain and being literally in bed for 2 days because I was writhing and panting through the pain, I took the opportunity to explore what this non-traditional method might look like for me and what might be the right choice for me. What it ended up looking like and what I am still in the middle of is doing some deep generational work. I am the oldest daughter of the oldest daughter of the oldest daughter, and realizing that there were cycles that went back at least 4 generations. I am fortunate to have had a very close relationship with my great-grandmother, my grandmother, and still to this day, my mother. But I could see some of these patterns and began to understand how even though I wasn't in a similar situation. Those beliefs had been encoded into my very epigenetic makeup. We know from science that trauma is passed down through genetics, that children of parents who experienced famine even before they were pregnant have different expressions in their DNA than they would if their parents were well fed their entire lives. So knowing that I existed inside of my grandmother, because the eggs are formed in utero for females. So knowing that I existed inside my grandmother and my mother existed inside my great grandmother, it wasn't that far of a leap to think that this had been passed down to me. So through some intense work directly with my healer, we did some body-based practices. I can't really explain them. It melds body and mind, just like breath work does, where when you find where you're feeling whatever it is in your body, then you can go into that part of your body and ask it what it needs. Some of the things that I had to work through was having 2 C-sections, and both of my pregnancies were high risk. I had a lot of doubt and a lot of fear about this part of my body being able to function correctly. And while my 2 C-sections were planned and they were scheduled, they happened on schedule, I didn't go into labor early, there was a part of me where I didn't ever go into labor and wondered if I had missed out on something because I never experienced that period at the end of the sentence, that natural conclusion of the contraction and pushing a child out of my body. Now, the logical part of me was like, I'm good, but it was a massive surgery. What is it? 6, 7 layers of tissue is cut through during a C-section. And that happened to me twice. And knowing what I know now, I would have done the energetic prep work to work with my uterus to prepare it for a C-section, to explain to my uterus, as wild and wackadoodle as maybe that sounds, I would have spent the time to prepare my uterus to be cut on, to be opened up, to be violated. There was trauma in this part of my body for good reason, but it still experienced it as trauma nonetheless. So some of the things that we did, again, was intergenerational, where I was able to, through a meditative state, go back in time to the time of my birth and have a conversation with myself and hold space for my mother. I was able to go back and sit with my great grandmother and my grandmother and hold space for them as well, and cut these cords that were linking us throughout these generations so that I can feel more liberated. I've been doing this work for about 3 months now, and I am cautiously optimistic. There were some other tools and modalities that we used. I don't want to explain them because, one, I'm not trained in these particular modalities. I'm not trained in doing this. And somatics is such a highly personalized experience, just like when I customize a breathwork session for someone, no 2 breathwork sessions are ever the same. Even if I said the exact same words to 2 different people, their experiences are completely different. I see this all the time in group breathwork sessions. So I'm not going to get too wrapped up in the details of what exactly it was that I went through. Everything that I did happened over Zoom. Everything that I did was a visualization practice, working through my subconscious and deeply into my body, nourishing my body, making sure that my energy was protected and supported as much as possible. All that to say, after 3 months of doing this work, I'm cautiously optimistic. It has been better for me during my cycles, and I'm going to continue to do this work. The reason why I wanted to really talk about this and dedicate an entire episode of the podcast is because as I was contemplating the idea of scheduling a hysterectomy, I went down a rabbit hole on TikTok, as one does, on YouTube as well, searching for firsthand experiences. How did you prep for the hysterectomy? What has recovery been like? Would you make the same choice again? And I found those videos to be incredibly helpful and really did ease my mind a lot should I end up having to make this decision that I need a hysterectomy. Right now, my own knowing is telling me otherwise. So far, I'm seeing benefits from what I'm doing. No matter how you think about it, whether you think, oh, well, it's all in her head, it's a placebo. So if I'm experiencing less pain, then why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I harness my body and my brain, some of the most potent medicine that we have access to, instead of going straight to a pill or a surgery, which is going to cause a ripple of other side effects? So I wanted to offer an alternative for some people if your knowing is leading you this way. This is not an anti-hysterectomy discussion. It's not a pro-hysterectomy discussion. This is about honoring your own knowing and trusting yourself to do the work and experiment a little bit in the right circumstances. I'm not going to put any more caveats onto this because I hope that you're hearing my heart here. So I have another 4 somatic sessions coming up over the next couple of months, and we will see. We'll see. Maybe in the end of season 3 here, by the end, I will have a yes or no answer. But for me, if I can mitigate my pain to a level where if I need to get up and be active and take a kid to a lacrosse game or whatever it is, I can. Of course, I'm going to take a day in bed and nurture myself if I have the opportunity. But if I can get it to the point where I don't have to schedule my life around it and I can manage the pain with the medications that are available to me, then I'm going to do that, knowing that I only have a couple more years until I will hit menopause and this time in my life will end. So that's where we stand. It's been a really interesting journey. It's definitely been the next layer of healing for me. I'm looking forward to working with my healer again, like I said, for the 4 somatic sessions that I have coming up. I never know where it's actually going to take me. So I can't even say that all 4 of those sessions are going to be focused on my uterus and this sacral part of my energy system. But what I'm doing has moved the needle. Not enough yet, but I feel that there's progress there as well. So I will keep you in the loop. If you have any questions, I don't have a really great explanation of how other people do womb healing. Again, I haven't experienced that. If you want me to point you towards some trusted resources, if you are interested in exploring more of that part of your body, whether it's with a a sex counselor or sex educator or someone who just does coaching around sexuality and those types of topics, I have people that I can refer you to, as well as some beautiful accounts that do divine feminine self-reclamation type work as well, and would be happy to pass those resources along to you. But I'm a fan of the work that I've done, and it has felt really, really transformative for healing my inner child and for breaking some of these generational issues that have been flowing through my ancestry for at least the last 120 years. It felt really good to shed that weight. Okay, again, please drop your questions, comments into the comment section here, or reach out on Instagram, send me a direct message. I would love to share more about my experience, answer any questions that you may have, and again, pass those resources along to you. Thank you for joining me on this episode of From Root to Crown with Rebe. I hope today's exploration of womb healing and my personal journey so far has offered you valuable insights and a deeper connection to your own journey. Remember, you are your own medicine, your own teacher. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. I look forward to continuing this journey with you in our next episode. Until then, be gentle with yourself and stay connected to the wisdom within.